I am disclosing my knowledge of aliens before I pass. I don't know exactly how to start this since I am not a regular, but I am just going to get right into it. I most likely do not have much time left on this earth due to liver cancer that I believe was brought on by a career where I spent a lot of time around radioactive materials and a few things that I did not fully understand at the time. All proper PPE was always worn and all precautions were always taken. These things just happen, and I have come to terms with it over the past few years. Therefore, I am just going to spill the beans. No, there is no underwater, secret magical base. No, they do not cloak as humans. They have zero interest or need to. No, they are not short grey humanoids or lizard people. Aliens are very real, and they most certainly do live amongst us. The worst part being, it became mundane, and I never really cared to share because it felt so normal and just the focus of my career. But now, with a definite diagnosis, I don't care if I put myself in harm's way. It would be merciful at this point to kill me before I started radiation therapy again. I worked in an independent research laboratory separate from the United States and Canadian governments, but we had contracts, training, and security clearances from the United States government from 1996 to 2019. At least, that is how long I worked there. My station was located in an underground national laboratory facility in East Tennessee. I am certain you will be able to figure out where with that information. No, it was not like Men in Black. You knew what you needed to know on a need-to-know basis. No one ever really worked on the same projects, nor had the same contacts. I was never allowed to have any social media, nor speak about anything I did at work. Normal top secret clearance business, as far as I know. Please excuse any wait. I have prepared a lot of this in advance so I could get my thoughts straight, but I find myself wanting to add more and more details. Also, I worded something strangely, so I am rephrasing some of it. I have been debating on doing this for a few months now. My career was focused on physiology and international relations to an extent, mostly with the Canadian, Mexican, and German governments. To start out, these aliens are not our friends, nor our foes. They are fairly harmless and have helped us in the past. To name a few examples, the basics of radiation-based communications, radio comms, the beginnings of the Apollo program, the Manhattan Project. This is what destroyed our relationship with them, and a few of our various projects and research. Have you ever noticed we nearly peaked in the late 60s with Apollo 11, and now we cannot recreate it? We have since grown apart a bit for various reasons, and they are mostly just casual observers who try not to intervene with human relations. What I know about them physically. These mammals, and I call them mammals because that is what they are, stand around 6 feet to 6.5 feet tall for the males and near 5.5 feet to 6 feet for the females, about on par with humans. They have rather lanky and slim body types, with none of them ever looking to be out of shape. I am not certain, but I assume they stick to a strict diet, or can only consume certain foods here on Earth. Some people have called them dogmen or werewolves, but they do resemble canines in the face, with varying lengths of fur on their bodies, shorter on the stomach, arms, legs, longer on the chest, neck, cheeks. Being a physiology and natural science major, naturally, I was extremely interested in their bodies, how they function, and I could go on all day describing them in great detail, like how their hands are furred on top with clawed tips to their four fingers and thumb, as well as slightly webbed hands up to the first knuckle, and bold raised spots on their palms. I call them paw pads, as silly as that sounds. It is extremely eerie how human their bodies really are, but again, in my line of work, you see how these parts of the bodies function, and if it works here, then it must work everywhere else with a similar gravity and oxygen composition. As for the fur, I was never told anything, but I am assuming their planet or wherever they come from must be quite cold. The canine-looking snout and ears are most likely just an early survival adaptation for a harsh environment, need for a heightened sense of smell, and more directed hearing with ears that can move to the sound without breaking line of sight. Most of them have brown or amber eyes, However, I do distinctly remember seeing a report that I personally processed, burned, that stated a female with green eyes. Most of their colors seem to range within the autumn spectrum. Yes, that is a real classification within natural sciences, that being tans, reddish browns, cream colors, and darker browns as well. Their language sounds nearly Eastern European to a native English speaker like myself, and no, I never got the chance to learn much of their language. I was not paid to do so, so doing so would have been an immediate termination of my employment. But they do seem to understand most languages, mostly English, and as far as my recollection goes, they have been on this planet for several hundreds of years. Not the same ones, but their offspring and new arrivals. 50 to 60 years old is their normal lifespan, with very few making it past 65. What I know about them as pertained to my job: they were very hard to work with and do not have the best communication skills, or they just did not care to speak to us sometimes. We communicated only when necessary for research into their kind, as well as taking them when they were flying too close to the sun. Public encounters with their crafts. My job was pretty much as a babysitter. I had to not only study them, but also talk my way around problems that we had with them. You need to understand that they mean no harm, and are pretty much unarmed. Their kind did not revolutionize through war like we did. They built themselves up solely on curiosity, so they do not have a solid understanding on stealth and defense. However, as I said prior, they are extremely intelligent, especially when it comes to nuclear fusion and fission, some of which are way over my head. I am not a nuclear scientist. All I know is that their crafts are nuclear powered with an isotope that is extremely close to uranium-235 with some very strange and unearthly differences. As I was told during a PowerPoint presentation, yes, we had those every Monday. They have a few different crafts, the most obvious ones being the tic-tac or pill-shaped one. We called that a foxhound since it's a small, fast, and agile scouting ship used to test signal. It is manned, but usually with a crew of 2 to 4 individuals. Then there's the wolfhound, a much larger, oblong, saucer-shaped ship that is used as a telecom relay of sorts, a flying antenna if you will. This type of ship also flies quite high in the atmosphere, nearly to the level of the ISS, and it floats along in orbit for usually 10-hour shifts before coming back to land, and then taking back off with a fresh crew. I believe the crew of a wolfhound is about 8 to 12 individuals, and many can be in orbit at once, 24/7. There are a few other ships, but I do not know much about them if I am being completely honest, but can go further into detail if anyone is interested. Just let me know. They are not here to harvest resources or take over the world. They just needed a base of operations for a telecommunications relay in the Milky Way galaxy, which they lovingly refer to as the 118th sector. As I said before, we used to work with them quite often. However, the government seems to no longer care about their existence since they do not seem to enjoy speaking to us very much and just want to go on about their routines. They see all the wars and impending nuclear war and want nothing to do with it, knowing that they will be tricked once again into helping build a superweapon that will destroy this planet. If the government cannot use them, then they serve no use. Simple as that. That is why they are still highly classified, but just shelved for now, like a project that we have given up on. And I see why. After knowing of their existence and trying to work with them for over 20 years, you begin to see them as just another species found here on Earth. It gets nearly mundane at times when they don't answer or don't respond within a timely manner. It feels like messaging a coworker for help and they get back to you the next day. It gets infuriating and mundane, but I also understand their side. Why should they help us when we only want to destroy the planet that we call home? They don't see us as less than them. They are just very weary of our world and our intentions. My personal conspiracies. I do most certainly believe that their existence explains the sighting of werewolves, dogmen, and Bigfoot throughout history. Bigfoot is a bit of a stretch since they are tall and lanky, but stories seem to always become grander as time passes. They're kind of been here for so long that they are always so direct and nearly playful at times that I genuinely do believe they mean absolutely zero harm. They are obviously trained to speak with us, just as we are to them, so getting personal details out of them is nearly impossible with the older ones, or males in general. However, most females speak a bit softer and are more open to questions like, "How are you doing today?" or "What are your parents' names?" etc. And lastly, I think they are here to stay, even if humanity wipes itself out. The planet will eventually heal, even after nuclear war, and they will eventually inherit this planet. They cause so little issues and interact so little with us that I don't ever see the government fully releasing details on their existence, nor trying to make them flee. I beg that if anyone reads my experiences and has any questions at all, please ask me right away. I am a completely open book and will hold nothing back. I won't be around for very long, so this is really my only chance to get all of this out. The nation's governments would never do so, because they have no need to. They are not a threat, nor an ally. They simply don't care about their existence anymore, but you all deserve to know. Why do you believe they are alien, and not some kind of human hybrid, or other man-created chimera? What are their thoughts on AI? How can we reach them? 1. They most certainly do come from another planet. They use our planet as a telecom station to reach out to other planets. They have satellite-like arrays in our orbit specifically for that. They talk about their home like it is a place of mind instead of a physical place, but I believe that is just them being a bit homesick. 2. They think AI can be a wonderful tool if used properly. Do I believe that they have anything to do with it? Not entirely. It is just a model dataset trained to do one thing very well. They also use forms of artificial intelligence in their technology, but from what I have seen, it is for entertainment and work-related, such as autopilot systems, etc. 3. You cannot reach them directly, but they do love watching people. There may be a way to get attention focused on you more specifically, but I am not certain how. You say that they have largely stopped contact with us as a result of the fallout of the Manhattan Project. Any insight into what inspires them to make any remaining contact that they make? Any insight how one could potentially make contact themselves with them? May you find any relief from any pain and suffering liver cancer presents in your life anon. 1. They continue to make minimal contact for the same reason why Russia still speaks with United States representatives. They want very little to do with our governments, but they do not hate people. They understand the government rules the people, and that the government's actions are not a representation of the people. They want to stay on our good side and be friendly with us. 2. They are known to observe people, and they do enjoy people watching as entertainment. They never really make contact with people aside from accidents, which are where those cryptid myths come from. 3. Thank you for your words. I am not hurting much right now, but I can't really do much more without abdominal pain. Do they look like this? The picture is quite blurry, but yes, a bit. Thinner snouts, but the ears are about right. They have large ears. The thing around its neck also looks to be a status symbol for a pilot. They wear neck-sealing rings stitched into their clothing for high-altitude flying in an unpressurized ship. They use full helmets and breathing apparatuses in a wolfhound since it is not pressurized for reasons they never wanted to disclose. Yes, they do believe in an ultimate creator that created the entire universe. They called him Yera or Yera. Not sure how it's spelled, but it's pronounced like Yera. They also do definitely have a social structure, with men mostly in charge of critical roles and women in charge of everything else. They also do this based on age. The older males are above the younger, etc. You think dog people are the only aliens that have been here? Not at all. If one species exists, then there must be more. These are the only ones that my job pertained to. Everything we did was very compartmentalized. You were given a certain amount of information to do your job and told about absolutely nothing else. I used an L3 Harris satellite terminal for communication with everything already set up for me when I started. Of course, we upgraded as years passed, and it went from pictures and writing to voice calls, to video calls. What's their thoughts on religion, angels, demons, magic? Do they know if there are any other realities? We spoke of religion a few times, and they were quite intrigued by our various religions here on Earth. They never spoke down about religion, but they did always say that no one can ever really know what happens after death. I do not believe we ever talked much about demons and magic, since they were not subjects I was ever asked to talk about. On the topic of alternate realities, they do firmly believe in parallel universes, but those are just a theory, even to them. The thought of other realities moving alongside ours is nothing more than a theory at the moment, sadly. As I said before, they stand at around 5.5 to 6 feet tall on average. They are slim, yet uniquely feminine, as you would imagine. They of course do give live birth, giving them wider hips than males, with slimmer waists. They do have breasts, albeit quite small, with not a lot of breast tissue, and they have 4 nipples. 2 on the pectorals, as humans do, and a second set just before the ribs end. I assume this is due to them often having 3 to 4 offspring at once. Did you destroy a lot of reports? Who made those reports? I did. Most of the time, a report would be signed off by whoever wrote it up. We would only keep physical copies of reports for up to 8 hours, and if they were expired or no longer needed, then you would shred and burn them in a machine that shredded and incinerated paper. I am pretty sure that we used an Aegis secure incinerator. All reports were written by humans. We did not work that closely together. Anyways, reports were just documentation and notes from the most recent contact. I only got reports from my contacts. No one else aside from the couple I saw offhandedly. Do they know, or are they related to secret/discreet societies, like Freemasonry? I ask because you mentioned the term Yara. In some higher degrees within Freemasonry, we refer to this term with a concept similar to the one that you mentioned. I do not believe so, but it is possible someone within the Freemasonry Society knows of them. Of course, that is entirely possible. I am being 100% genuine with everyone. If you have any questions, then I would love to answer them. I understand it is strange and different to what most aliens are portrayed as, but that is all part of a disinformation campaign funded by many world governments. If they are described as little green men from Mars, then no one would really believe in them, and others will call the believers crazy. I do genuinely beg that you read my entire experience, because I am being completely genuine in everything I say. This is one of my only chances to get this information out, where it will not be just seen as a crazy man losing his mind. You all seem to believe, and I know I have something unbelievable to tell. But please, just hear me out. I was just explaining how and when we destroyed reports. I felt the need to fully disclose everything to give context to how reports are dealt with. I understand that this is hard to believe, and I completely understand where you are coming from. I can be less detailed if you like, but I do not believe that will help at all. It takes time for me to type, and to be honest, I hurt quite a lot. I am just trying to cover the entire topic so that I do not have to answer a similar question twice. Did these dog people ever talk about life on the planet? Do they have similar animals there? Do they like Earth dogs? Yes, they did. Most of them rotate on a 10-year basis, with new ones coming in to take over around once a decade. They all had the same sentiment. They missed home, but knew they had a job to do. They do have animals as well, but just less evolved life like we do. They have some that they harvest meat from, like a cow for instance, and some like birds as well. My job was mostly relations-based, so I did not get to ask personal questions very often. I mentioned dogs before, but always got the same quiet answer. They found it strange that they resembled our canines a bit, but they also found it strange that we have 4 fingers and a thumb like them, and that we walk upright like them. They have a strict policy placed on them that they may not interrupt the natural cycle of Earth, meaning that they do not mess with the flora and fauna here. They are indifferent about dogs. So they eat meat. Do you remember what they ate? Yes. I specifically remember they ate mostly a diet of grains and lean meats, like chicken and fish. Red meat here seemed to hurt their stomachs. It's alright, and yes, they used Earth as a strategic position within the edge of the Milky Way galaxy for communications between other relays. They have quite a few, but they swore that Earth was the only planet they had come across with intelligent life so far. I do not believe we will ever get disclosure from any government agency, since they pose no harm, risk, or help. If they ever did, it would be sudden, just to come clean about the relationship we have. There would be no build-up, just a press briefing. As for a timeline, I would assume if it were to ever happen, it would soon, if ever. People just want answers to seeing these crafts. I have heard about ZPA, but I have not studied it personally now. If I remember correctly, ZPA, and quantum mechanics in general, utilize the way particles react to certain stimuli in order to control them or create energy on a quantum level. Their ships work on a similar principle, using their air molecules and vibrating them in a way to generate lift. However, you could say the same for ailerons. We use air to generate lift, but just in a completely different way. But no, they have been around much longer than how long humans have had electromagnetism and EMP technology. We have also been friendly with them for nearly the entirety of their stay. We made first contact with them in the early 1930s. I remember it being either 1942 or 1943. However, they do not fly low near the North or South Poles. That could have something to do with how their ships function around the Earth's magnetic field, or since the South Pole especially is a radio weapons testing area. My experience with alien abduction. Good afternoon, X. I have lurked here for years, but rarely ever post. I mainly stick to extraterrestrial related topics, mostly due to an absolutely extreme experience that I had years ago. I have dealt with this in my own way for years, never really talking about it because I work for the government and don't want to lose my job for sounding crazy. I am going to shorten it up a bit, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions or provide more info on anything I have outlined here. Be me. Get out of the Marine Corps in 2017 after serving for 8 years. Move back home to Montana for government contract work. Get extremely sick. Sent home to rest. Don't remember anything that day. Wake up feeling oddly warm with very cool bright lights. Eyes take a while to adjust. Surrounded by 4 strange, humanoid creatures. Resemble canines in the face. Long thin hair, like dog fur, covers parts of their bodies not covered by clothing. Absolutely silent, except for a low-pitched hum in the background. Not an extraterrestrial ship, but instead a compound on a planet. I remember not being able to move, probably in shock. They never hurt me, and they were always very gentle. They spoke in an Eastern European-sounding accent. That is the best way that I can describe it. I could never understand their language when they did talk around me, but I did learn a few names and greetings. We'll continue with more info in the replies. This was not a dream. I felt like I was with them for years, so please hear me out. I have many stories, and am open to rational reasoning why maybe I did not experience what I thought I did. I have spent the last few years trying to learn to sculpt and 3D model so that I can show what I saw. So yes, pick related. My beginner level interpretation of these beings, whether extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, or something else. I heard the word grata a lot when they were trying to talk to me. At least, that is how I assume to spell it in English. I think it's the name of their people or race. They all wore rather normal-looking clothing, with slick Velcro-like material along the back of their shirts, long sleeve, thin cotton-looking fabric. Everything just seemed so normal that it's hard to really explain. They all had neck pieces with a trinket, along with 4 dots, and very intricate engravings on the backing of the trinket. I do not remember the engravings, so I did not include them in this image, but this is basically how it looked. I remember not feeling afraid, but instead welcomed, as if this was a forced feeling. I was never scared of them, and honestly, found them to be a gentle and an oddly cute race. This was mostly due to their mannerisms. They had rather adorable interactions with each other, often watching each other work with curiosity and wagging tails. Their tails were longer than a dog's, but equal in proportion with their body size, about 2 to 3 feet long, I guess. The females did not have breasts, but still smaller waists and wider hips proportionally. I assume this must be the same for all bipedals that go through live birth. They had variations in their hair pattern, short on their arms, legs, chest, etc., long on their cheeks and neck, but short on their mouths. The names I learned were Verta and what sounded like Hort. I assume these are last names, call signs, or some kind of rank. At least, that is what I was able to understand. I assume they are not first names, since they called each other something very different. The spelling is a complete guess, and maybe a bit different than what I heard. Verta, female, around 5.5 feet tall, the only female I saw. Long fur on her tail, rather feminine appearance compared to the others. Duh. Tan and cream-colored fur, greenish eyes, long tufts of fur in her ears, and appeared to be trimmed and well-groomed. Same for her cheeks, trimmed and groomed. Hort, male, around my height, 5 foot 11 inches. The only male that seemingly was allowed to speak to me. Shorter fur in general than Verta, slim, but rather fit-looking build. Dark brown and light brown fur, brown eyes, also well-groomed.